First of all, how long have you known Joe Zimmerman, and how well do you know him?
I've known George since he started dating his wife for about 6 years, and I know him well enough to be standing here on his behalf in a very unpopular position.
Well, we thank you for giving voice to a man that we have not heard from. You're one of the few people to talk to him. What is he telling you about what happened that night? And are you able to tell us everything that he told you?
No, I can't tell you everything that he told me because that's evidence that will eventually come out in the grand jury and as part of the investigation. But what you've since learned through the Orlando Sentinel report is what George has told me, right in line with what George has told me. And he has told me what happened after Trayvon and he came face to face.
Okay, so you had mentioned to an Orlando TV station that he told you more about a struggle between them regarding the gun being pounded into the concrete. So the picture that emerges is that he shot Trayvon in self-defense, but do you know, are you saying that maybe the gun was not shot, but it actually went off accidentally somehow?
Well, I've gotten more clarification on what happened, and I can't comment on that. I will say that, yes, there was a struggle between the two, and it ended horribly.
Now, this was at the point where the transcript says that the dispatcher said, you know, are you following him? And Zimmerman said, yeah. And the dispatcher says, okay, we don't need you to do that. And Mr. Zimmerman said, okay. So did he tell you what happened at that point after he backed off and stopped following them? How did then a confrontation happen?
Well, that was in the report that was released as well, and what George related to me. He was headed back to his vehicle when Trayvon approached him. You know, one of the questions that I've been asked has been, you know, what would motivate Trayvon to attack George? And it's the same motivation that has brought us to this point all across the country, and it's fear. I mean, I have no doubt that Trayvon was fearful for his own safety at that time. But I also have no doubt that the end result was something that George Zimmerman was not ever wanting to happen, and only happened because George got to a point where he believed in his heart that he needed to make a decision if he was going to live.
So here you are speaking out for your friend. What can you tell me about how his life has been changed and how he's had to change how he's living his life because of the massive attention on this case across the nation?
His life will never be the same. He's living in seclusion. I don't know where he's at. I do know how to get in touch with him now, but I have no idea where he's at. He's being treated for post-traumatic stress syndrome, depression, insomnia. He can't eat. He cried for days after the shooting. He's extremely remorseful. And now he's living in hiding because he has become the scapegoat for what ails this country as far as racial relations go.
You know, Joe, as a father and as a minority, how do you balance the concerns with a story like this with your friendship with George, what you know about this man?
I'm not here just for George. I'm here for my kids. I'm here for every other young black man. I understand why everybody is upset. If I didn't know George, I'd be upset too, and I'd be out there. If I didn't know what I know, I'd be just as outraged. But once this is all over, we still have to address the problem that brought us to the point in the first place, and that's the fear that we have of each other, the fear that we have of young black men. We hear all of the stories about the criminal aspects that have put young black men in the spotlight, but we don't hear enough about all the successful black men that we have out there, the ones who have done it on their own, the ones who have pulled themselves up out of poverty. We don't hear enough about that. I mean, we've got a black president, yet we stereotype black males. I get that. We've got to continue this conversation after this is over because it goes beyond Trayvon and George. And at its core, this particular incident, this confrontation between Trayvon and George, it had nothing to do with race. But because of our racial history, because of Sanford's racial history, I mean, that's why we're at where we are now.
Why did it just caused you to get a lump in your throat and was obviously a very emotional moment for you, Joe?
Well, I've got an 18-year-old son. My heart goes out to the Martins. I'm a black man. And like my friend George, I'm just trying to do the right thing.
Joe, thank you for being with us this morning. And obviously you think very highly of your friend to also be out here and speaking on his behalf when he's been told apparently not to speak for himself at this point.